sexual reproduction. From its name, it is a kind of reproduction that needs different gametes or different genders or different sexes. Here, the individuals or the offspring or the new individuals that are produced, they are as a result of combination or fusion of two different gametes. Of course, if we have, for example, in animals, a sperm, and this sperm has a nucleus inside that carries chromosomes, and on these chromosomes we have the characteristics or the genes for the characteristics or the characters of the male parent. And here I have an ovum with nucleus inside it is carrying chromosomes, and on these chromosomes there are genes for the characters of the female parent. So when there is fusion between these two nuclei, it means that both characteristics will be included in the zygote. Here the zygote, which is going to develop and grow in order to form a new individual, it's going to carry the characteristics or the genes of both parents. This will result in what's known as the genetic variation. And I just said that in mitosis, there is no genetic variation, and it's a disadvantage. This means that genetic variation is a good thing, and it is an advantage to this zygote, because it gathers information from genetic information from both parents, and this genetic variation will produce different information in the zygote that allows this zygote to, when it grows up to be an individual, to face any changes in the environment. Like what? For example, in animals, for example, if there is a new pathogen introduced to their habitat, ممكن ألاقي the individuals that have genetic variation, they can deal with this pathogen, but their parents cannot. Gathering information, as much information or as much genetic information as possible, is a good thing for the offspring, not a bad thing. This is a very important advantage to the sexual reproduction. Being a genetic variety due to the fusion of two different gametes of two different individuals, this improves the chance of survival, of course, if there is any environmental change. Type. Look at this exam hint. Remember that variation is the key to natural selection and evolution. طبعا later on we are going to deal with this natural selection, بس I just want to give you a hint على الexam hint دي. And if there is any change in the environment, any change like introduction of a new pathogen, for example. Pathogen means the organism that causes diseases. Introduction of a new kind of bacteria. The ones that have genetic variation, they can deal with this bacteria. They can survive with this bacteria. But if there is no genetic variation, these individuals are going to die. So the nature will select the individuals that have this genetic variety to continue on living and reproducing, while the others that do not have the genetic variety, they are going to be ignored by the nature, or they are not selected by nature, so they are going to die. طبعا we have a complete chapter later on about natural selection in topic 4 طبعا. طيب. So this is the advantage of the genetic, of the sexual reproduction. What about the disadvantages? Here we have some disadvantages And the first disadvantage is to find a mate. يعني in the mitosis, I said that there's no need to find a mate. This is an advantage, but here it's a disadvantage to find a mate. It's not easy to find a mate. Also, it is somewhat risky because sometimes the individual does not find a mate, so it's not going to reproduce. Also, there must be sexual organs. Or in other words, mature sexual organs. So what's the meaning of mature? It means that these sexual organs, they are able to do their function. Let me give you an example. مثلا about humans. The sexual organs are not mature except after مثلا 12 years, for example. ده المين طبعا. يعني until puberty, the sexual organs are not mature. It takes a very long time to mature, the sexual organs to mature in order to make their function or to begin the sexual reproduction. These are two disadvantages. Sometimes, by the way, بيحصل something like mutations that the sexual organs are not developed at all. They remain like that as if يعني they never mature. This is a disadvantage طبعا in the sexual reproduction. طيب. I said at the beginning that the sexual reproduction needs gametes, or different gametes. But what are the gametes? They have another name, the sex cells. طيب. طبعا, because I said sex cells, it means that they are different in both sexes, in male and female. But we have different organisms. We have animals, of course, the ones that are reproducing sexually. I'm not going to mention حاجة زي البروكاريوتس مثلا والplants. في الانيمالز بيبقى الميل gamete, it is the sperm, where in the female gamete it's the ovum, plural ova. While in the plants we have the male gamete, the pollen or the pollen grain, and the ovum. In the plant it has the same name. The sperm and the ova, they have n number of chromosomes, or in other words, the haploid number of chromosomes. What's the meaning of haploid number of chromosomes? It means that the gametes, they have half the number of chromosomes. So when their nuclei fuse together, they will give us a zygote that contains the total number of chromosomes once more. But what about the pollens and the ova in plants? The same. Here we have n number of chromosomes in each of them, and when there is, and in other words, yani the haploid number of chromosomes, and when they fuse together, they will give us a zygote that contains the total number of chromosomes, or we call it the diploid number of chromosomes. So these are the gametes. ودايما the zygote is produced due to fertilization of the male nucleus with to the female nucleus. Yani sometimes you think that the whole sperm is going to fertilize the ovum. No, the nucleus of the sperm is going to fuse with the nucleus of the ovum. Nucleus of the pollen grain will fuse with the nucleus of the ovum, وده طبعا what we call fertilization. طب how are these gametes formed بقى? How are they formed in the body? Now, if I have, for example, the cells of the body, again, I'm going to put here animals and plants. We have organs that are called the reproductive organs. For example, in animals, we have reproductive organs for the male animal, these are the testes. This is plural, singular is testis with an I. طيب in the female بيبقى فيه ovaries. Female ovaries. Here the testes and the ovaries, they are organs of reproduction. Organ. It means that their cells are 2N or diploid. We call these organs the gonads. خلي بالكم من إن the names are very similar to each other, these words. فالتستس والovaries, they are gonads and they are organs. That's why they have diploid cells forming them. But when some of these cells divide by meiosis, which is the reduction division, and some of these cells that divide by meiosis, so this will give 4 sperms. Each one is having n number of chromosomes. Type. Will all the testes divide by meiosis? No. A part of the testis or some cells of the testis, they divide by meiosis, while the rest, they are dividing by mitosis عادي. They give us 4 sperms, each having half the number of chromosomes, and for the ovaries, some cells of the ovaries will divide by meiosis to give 4 ova. So here we have haploid ova, and here we have haploid sperms. The sperms and ova are called the gametes. يبقى التestis and ovaries, they are called the gonads, but the sperms and ova, they are called the gametes. طب what about the plants بقى? في الplants, we have male organs, which are the anthers, and female organs, which are the ovaries. بس طبعا لكل واحدة بتبقى فيه only one ovary، لكن الانثرز بيبقوا كتير. here the anthers and ovary, they are called the gonads. Some of the cells, and again they have 2N because these are organs, some of these cells will divide by meiosis to give rise to the gametes, 4 pollen grains, each one containing n number of chromosomes. And here we have 4 ova. Every one contains the haploid number or half the number of chromosomes, and they are called the gametes. So these are the pollen grains or the pollens, and here are the ova. Ova, as I said yesterday, it's the plural of ovum. These are called the gametes. But how are they formed? The formation, of course, is done by meiosis. Let me show you this picture, and then I will start in meiosis. Of course, here, as I just said, that if this is a testis, so it is a diploid, it's formed of diploid cells, and when it produces sperms, the sperms are haploid. In the female, these are the ovaries, 2N برضو, and when they divide, يعني some of the cells, they give me a haploid ovum. Let's look at this. في المale, the type of tissue, this is the body tissue, so the testis is similar to the body tissue. They are both diploid, but the sperms, they are haploid. And for the female, the gonads or the ovaries, they have 2N as the body tissue, but when they divide, they are giving the ova, which is haploid, or ovum, which is haploid. If there is fertilization between the haploid sperm and the haploid ovum, So they give the diploid zygote, or the total number of chromosomes returned back again to 2n. Is there any question about this part? Please, if there is, if everything is clear, just tell me.
Yes, Miss, it's clear.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. طب let's go now to meiosis بقى. And sometimes, or you can call it either, also meiotic division. We can call it the reduction division. Sometimes you are asked about this simple question: why meiosis is a reduction division? How will? Because the number of chromosomes was reduced to half when the gametes are produced. Meiosis is a reduction division that happens in the sex organs, in the gonads, as I just said, and they produce the gametes, of course, or the sex cells. في البلانتس أو في الفلowering plants بيبقى الميوزز is formed in special cells, أو they form the special cells that are called the microspores for the males. لكن في الفيميل plant the produced cells they are called the megaspores. Micro means minute or very, very small. Mega means large, because if you compared the ovum with the pollen grain, the ovum is much, much, much bigger than the pollen grain, as I'm going to explain later on. Type. What happens بقى to the chromosomes in meiosis? Let me explain the first stage of meiosis, and then I'm going to, of course, explain what happens in the chromosomes. لكن I just want to tell you something here, that meiosis happens on 2 stages. Not like mitosis, it's only 1 stage. No, it's 2 stages. The first stage is called meiosis 1 in Latin, like in Roman numbers. Sometimes they write it meiosis 1. But طبعا this is not a way to write يعني a scientific expression like this. It's written always in Roman numbers. And then there is another stage which is called meiosis 2. For both of them, we have prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, cytokinesis. Prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, cytokinesis for both. But let's go with the first meiotic division at the beginning. And by the way, meiosis 2 completes meiosis 1. So let's go to meiosis 1 at the beginning. Of course, this is cell division. So it must be preceded by an interphase again. Interphase. طب يعني ايه interphase؟ يعني preparation of the cell to divide. Preparation of the cell to divide means that the chromosomes are going to be doubled. So if I again started by 2 chromosomes, so here they are doubled. This is 1 chromosome. This is its replica. Replica means that it's replicated, so it's doubled. And this is 1 chromosome, so this is its replica. It means that we have 2, أو هقولها كده أحسن, this one was doubled like this and this one was doubled like this. So before the cell starts its meiosis 1, it must be, or it must pass through an interphase to prepare the cell by what I said yesterday, and I again revised it today. So we start now prophase 1. In prophase 1, so here of course there is condensing of the chromosomes, so the chromosomes can appear if the cell is stained, and every chromosome will appear as made of 2 chromatids, as you can see. Now here in prophase 1, the nuclear envelope will disappear, the nucleolus will disappear, and the spindle fibers, of course, they were doubled in interphase, they are going to migrate to each pole of the cell. Each centriole will migrate again to each pole of the cell. And while migrating, they are producing the spindle fibers. You're going to say, yes, you said this in mitosis. Of course, it's the same. بس في some differences بقى. طيب يبقى as the nuclear envelope disappeared and the nucleolus disappeared, spindle fibers migrated to the poles of the cells while the centrioles, they migrated to the poles of the cell while producing the spindle fibers. So this will end the prophase 1. But there is a very important event that happens in prophase 1. طيب ايه هي بقى؟ This is something called crossing over. Let us see the crossing over at the beginning, and then I'm going to return back to this picture. I will take only 2 chromosomes, homologous chromosomes, as an example. So this is 1 chromosome, like this, for example, the one that was coming from the male parent. And this is the other chromosome, for example, the one that was coming from the female parent. طبعا every one of them is carrying its own characteristics on the genes. طب حد بقى هيقول لي لا, yesterday you said that the same kinds of genes. Okay, suppose I have here the gene for the color of the eye, and here I have, طبعا بيبقى على الاثنين, and here I have the gene of the color of the eye, but the color of the eye of the father is different from that of the mother. Yes, they are the genes of the color of the eye, but they will give me different colors for the eye, of course. One of the color of the eye of the father, and the other one, the color of the eye of the mother. The homologous chromosomes, they approach each other, or they stand beside each other, and we call this shape the bivalent. Bivalent means that both homologous chromosomes, they get very close to each other. Then the next step is that there is something called crossing over. طب what is crossing over بقى? This is crossing of the 2 neighbor chromatids of both chromosomes. Yani the far chromatids, they will not do anything. This is one, but the other one is going to act like this, as if we are crossing the legs, okay? This is the other one. It's going to act like this, the neighboring chromatids, and the other chromatid will do nothing. This is called a chiasma. But what's the meaning of chiasma? Anything taking the shape of the letter X is called a chiasma. فهنا this shape is called a chiasma. طب will the chiasma be produced only here? لا, ده ممكن at any part on the chromosome. يعني ممكن الاقي الchiasma is happening here. Sorry. In these parts مثلا. هنا. Okay. ممكن الchiasma to happen here. The only part in which there are no chiasmas at all عند السنترومير يا جماعة. لأن عند السنترومير there are no genes. طب why are they making this crossing over or this chiasma? Because they are going to exchange the genes. يعني the genes of the red chromosome will go to the yellow one and the opposite. فبلاقي ان finally أو the final result that the yellow chromosome, this one, did not change, while the other one, it took the genes of the red chromosome. While the red chromosome here, it took the genes of the yellow chromosome, like this. طبعا they are not yellow and red, but I'm just giving different colors in order to show you that there is an exchange of genes. When there is recombination of the genes like that, we call both of them the recombinants. Okay, so at the beginning they were called the bivalent when there is no exchange yet, where both homologous chromosomes, one from the father, the other one from the mother, they approached each other, and then the neighboring chromatids from both chromosomes, they make a cross like that, which is called the chiasma, to exchange the genes, and finally a new recombination of genes على الchromosomes form occurs, and this shape is called, or both of them, they are called the recombinants because there is a new recombination of the genes. This is called crossing over, and it happens in the prophase 1 only. يعني this crossing over does not happen in any part of meiosis except in prophase 1 of meiosis 1. طيب ما دام عندي different combination of genes يبقى معناها ان ال crossing over will lead to genetic variation طبعا. When the individual or when the sperm or the ovum are formed by meiosis, they are taking characteristics that were not found in the male or in the female. طيب let's go back to our figure. So here in prophase there is crossing over. Prophase 1 is very long. It takes a very long time. فwhy بقى؟ يبقى the reasons in the nuclear envelope will disappear. The nucleolus will disappear. The centrioles, they separate and migrate to each pole of the cell while producing the spindle fibers. And there is crossing over, of course. فالcrossing over, it takes a time. That's why the prophase 1 in meiosis 1, it takes the longest time of all the phases of meiosis. Now, the cell or the chromosomes, they are ready to go to the second phase, which is the metaphase 1. نفس اللي قلته في الميتوزس. في الميتاphase, the chromosomes, they line up in the equator of the cell اهم. بس what's the difference بقى between الميوزس and mitosis? في الميتوزس, if you remember, or I show you again the picture. Here, in metaphase, the chromosomes lined up one by one. But in meiosis 2, the chromosome will line up 2 by 2. Not 1 by 1, 2 by 2. فالspindle fibers, again, they elongate and they are holding the centromeres. بس هنا بقى there is a difference. In mitosis, if this is the chromosome, the spindle fibers, one of them was holding this part of the centromere, while the other one was holding the other part of the centromere. When there was shrinkage of the spindle fibers, they pulled the chromatids away from each other. But in meiosis, no, this does not happen. I have here 2 chromosomes beside each other, and the spindle fibers, they are holding each chromosome alone. يعني each spindle fiber is holding one chromosome. This is metaphase. In anaphase, when the spindle fibers shrink, so they pull the whole chromosome with it away from its sister chromosome. Both chromosomes are completely pulled away from each other in anaphase 1. Look at anaphase 1, anaphase in mitosis. The chromatids are separated from each other, but here the whole chromosome is separated from its sister chromosome. Of course, this happens because of shrinkage of the spindle fibers. Now, we'll go through the next stage بقى اللي هي the telophase أو the next phase, telophase 1. Again, like telophase in mitosis, the cell membrane is going to fold inside like this, or it will constrict in order to divide the cytoplasm and the organelles into two. The nuclear envelope will reform again, and the nucleolus, I don't know why they don't draw it, will reform. But look at the number of chromosomes. Here I had 4 chromosomes, but here for every cell it has only 2 chromosomes. Now meiosis 1 ended, and we are ready to go into meiosis 2. But there is something very important about meiosis 1. The cells, when they are formed, they do not separate from each other. Yani if I completed this, the cells do not separate from each other. It means there is no cytokinesis in meiosis 1. Cytokinesis means complete separation of the two cells. Now, here there is no cytokinesis, okay? Where a telophase is considered as a new interface but without replication of DNA. Let me remind you of this interface. في الانترفيز يا جماعة, one of the events that happen is that the DNA replicates or doubles. But here, no, there is no further replication of the DNA, وإلا هرجعها تاني ل4 chromosomes زي الbeginning. فهنا there is no replication of the DNA. Now, we'll start the second meiotic division, which begins by prophase 2. Again, in prophase 2, the nuclear envelope and the nucleolus will disappear. The centrioles will migrate. I don't know why they do it like this. Edexcel book is يعني في several mistakes. The centrioles will migrate away from each other, or will separate away from each other and migrate to the poles of the cell. But here we have بقى 2 cells, not only 1 like here. In metaphase, the chromosomes, they will line up in the equator, 1 by 1. Here, they were 2 by 2. Okay, and then shrinkage of the spindle fibers in both cells, separating the chromatids away from each other. And then in telophase 2, this is anaphase 2, of course, in telophase 2, there is constriction of both cell membranes, and there will be complete separation of the 2 cells. If you can see here that I have here only 1 chromosome, but I started with 2 chromosomes, so here I have only 1. This means that the number of chromosomes was reduced to half. طب look at this phase, or the second meiotic division. It is exactly mitosis. بالضبط. That's why yesterday, when I was explaining, I said that mitosis is a part of sexual reproduction, because the second meiotic division is mitosis. بالضبط. Here I have of course, the prophase is the same. I have disappearance of the nuclear envelope, the nucleolus, the centrioles, they migrate to the poles while producing spindle fibers. And here I have the chromosomes are lining up one by one. And then when the spindle fibers they shrink, they pull away the chromatids from each other in both chromosomes. And finally, we have the cytokinesis where the cell was divided into 4 daughter cells, or we can say 4 gametes. Each one of them is having half the number of chromosomes. يبقى الأول كان عندي a diploid number of chromosomes, and finally I find a haploid number of chromosomes in each gamete. طيب في أي question في الميوسيس يا جماعة؟ Any question about meiosis? No questions? Okay, thank you. طيب let's go now. خلاص خلصنا الديفيجن. Let's go to its importance. طبعا you can predict طبعا the importance اللي هي genetic variation بالتأكيد. طيب لما بيحصل طبعا reduction division يبقى أول حاجة the formation of gametes, which is the beginning of sexual reproduction. So this is an importance, of course. The second importance is genetic variation. Genetic variation هنا has 2 reasons بقى. One of them you already knew اللي هي crossing over. إن طبعا بيحصل الكيازما between the chromosome of the father and the chromosome of the mother أو the maternal and paternal chromosomes, فبيحصل exchange of the genes وده اللي بيعمل طبعا the genetic variation. بس في another genetic variation that happens ملهاش علاقة بالcrossing over. It happens يعني أو خليني أقولها لكم بعدين. And there is another reason for genetic variation which is called the independent assortment. Independent means random assortment. But what does this mean بقى? What is this assortment? Let me return back to this picture. Now you can see here that we have 4 chromatids in every cell. Okay, but when they are distributed على ال4 gametes, there is no rule for their distribution. Sometimes مثلا this is going to be put here and this مثلا will be put here. This will go there and another one will go, يعني هنا مثلا واحدة تبقى هنا and the other one will be here. There is no certain rule. ممكن both of them to be here. There is no rule to control the distribution of the chromosomes في new gametes أو في new cells. This is what we call the random assortment or independent assortment. فأنا عندي one of the gametes مثلا one chromatid ما حصلهاش أي crossing over and the other chromatid was crossed. When they separate, one of these may go here like this and the other one may go there. And we have 2 chromosomes, for example, طبعا we have 46 Okay, sometimes two chromatids that did not cross over will gather in the same cell, while sometimes we have two of the crossed over chromatids will be in one cell. Yani there is no rule that judges the assortment or the distribution of the chromosomes inside the new cells. So this will result again in genetic variation. يبقى هنا ال distribution of the chromosomes for in the gametes, it is a completely random process. Nothing is governing it. Sometimes, as I told you, يعني we have, if for humans, the chromosomes, they are 23 from the father and 23 from the mother. المفروض ان both of them they go to the zygote. Okay, but what if this zygote is when it grew up it is forming its gametes? Already this zygote is carrying information from its parents. If this is going to form its gametes when it grows up بقى, فبلاقي ان sometimes the gametes may contain no chromosomes from this father, 0, and the only chromosomes are of the mother of this individual. يعني ممكن الجامت يكون no chromosomes from the father here, and all the chromosomes they are coming from this mother. Sometimes no, إن ممكن all the chromosomes they are from the father and no chromosomes from the mother. Sometimes, for example, 11 from the father and 12 from the mother. Sometimes 10 from the father and 13 from the mother. يعني there is no rule again for the which chromosomes are coming from the father or from the mother to be found in the gametes. لا ملهاش أي rule. Nothing is controlling this. That's why we say that it is a random process. Or the distribution of the chromosomes في gametes is a completely random process. طيب في كده number كان مكتوب في البوك, although it's not يعني a very accurate number, بيقولوا إن ممكن يكون في مثلا in one sperm أو in one ovum ممكن يكون عندي 8 million potential combinations of these. ما أنا هنا هحط لكم only 4 potential combinations. They say that there are for every sperm and for every ovum there are 8 million different combinations or potential combinations. But it is a random process. That's why ممكن ألاقي مثلا 4 sperms, each one of them is having a different combination of chromosomes in it. طيب يبقى this is a reason for genetic variation. So let me look at this picture which I just explained, crossing over, but I'd like to mention بقى something in addition. في crossing over بيبقى at the region of the chiasma, okay, that may be more than one chiasma may be there, but I'm just explaining one of them. بلاقي إن في multi-enzyme complexes that join the chromosome of the parents together. يعني if this is, for example, the chromosome coming from the father, and this one is coming from the mother. So this chromosome is called the paternal chromosome, and the other chromosome is the maternal chromosome. ممكن أقول from the father and from the mother? Yes, of course. But instead you can say the paternal chromosome and the maternal chromosome. بلاقي إن في at the chiasma itself بيبقى في multi-enzyme complexes that join these chromosomes together أو these chromatids together. أو the reason for the formation of the chiasma are multi-enzyme complexes. What's the meaning of multi-enzyme complexes? It means that many kinds of enzymes are responsible for this crossing or the formation of the chiasma, where the plural of chiasma is chiasmata. اوكي، فايه اللي بيخلي فيه الكيازما؟ enzymes. They share together كده to form this chiasma to allow the exchange of the genes between the paternal and the maternal chromosome. طبعا أنا لما بقول genes I mean of course the alleles يعني, because the gene is represented by its allele whether dominant or recessive. During this process of crossing over sometimes بيحصل mutation. طب what's the meaning of mutation? Mutation means there is a change in the base sequence of the genes that were crossed. ممكن طبعا ده an error that can happen during crossing over. بيبقى فيه mutation to the alleles that were crossed, وده طبعا will result in more and more genetic variation. وزي ما قلت لكم ان ما دام في recombination of genes فبسمي الchromosomes that they are the recombinants. تمام. I think يعني is it clear this part عشان انا ادخل بعد كده في how the gametes بقى are produced. طبعا all these are let me return back to this.